Let's take a look at the semiconductor industry. Most folks might associate the semi space with countries around the globe, even here in the broader country, but there's a small town in North Carolina that's imprint on the sector is shockingly critical. According to Bain Company, about 80 to 90% of global quartz supply coming from spruce pine, and almost every cell phone and computer chip contains quartz from the small southern town. So what does this mean for the broader semiconductor industry amid challenging weather conditions? Joining us now to discuss, we've got Peter Hanbury, Bain Company's partner and leader of operations for tech practice. It's great to speak with you here. So I just want to start by giving our audience a little bit of context. Talk to me about the relationship between this town and the semiconductor industry in just 60 seconds here.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the situation in North Carolina has the potential to have a big impact on the industry if it lasts for more than 6 months. And really two reasons for that. One, the high purity quartz produced is really critical to the industry in two ways. It helps produce the silicon wafers that form the basis of all semiconductor products. And it's also used in the wafer manufacturing tools used by TSMC, Intel, and Micron. And then there's not really a lot of suppliers in this space who can meet the purity requirements of the industry, and the complexity of the manufacturing process requires months of work to qualify new suppliers, so it's very hard to switch. So together, the criticality and challenge of adding new suppliers means this a potential for a big impact is possible here.
And Peter, you mentioned if it lasts for longer than 6 months. I mean, how do you sort of assess that risk of, is it going to last more than 6 months? And how are you sort of weighing those two different options there of it maybe being short or maybe going longer than we think?
No, it's a great question. And it's one of the challenges of the industry. And the best players in the industry recognize these bottlenecks and spend a lot of time identifying where these bottlenecks are, developing proactive mitigation plans like additional inventory, and monitoring their supply base. And the best players would have known this potential impact was coming about a week ago. So as we look at the impact, we see several months of inventory along the value chain, which will limit the immediate impact. A few years ago, during a lot of the shortages, this would have immediately flown through and led to a larger disruption. But given the utilization and lead times have returned to normal over the last year or so, we've got a little bit more buffer in the system to absorb shocks like this. So we don't know the exact impact of the damage or how long it'll take to get the facilities up and going again, but we think there's at least a couple months of inventory to limit the immediate impact.
And Peter, I'm just curious too, to take a step back for a second. For folks who are listening who have no familiarity with quartz, can you talk about the everyday devices that could be impacted by this?
Yeah, I mean, as a part of the semiconductor manufacturing process, every form of logic semiconductor, NAND, DRAM, or memory, or even solar devices, for example, the solar cells on your roof, all use these components to make the individual chips. So you would see them in your smartphone, notebook, the servers that support all of the web pages you interface with, and even a lot of the power delivery into your house, for example, would be driven by semiconductors. And so that impact could spread quite widely and impact a lot of folks, similar to what we saw with the chip shortage.
Absolutely. And I think it points to this broader challenge that certainly the government has been working through, which is domestic chips production. I'm curious from your perspective, what this story tells us about the importance of increased competition in the chip sector, just to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, the chip sector in general is inherently challenged. The technical requirements of the process, being able to print 30 trillion transistors on a dinner plate, means that the technical requirements of the industry are massive. And that's up and down the value chain. And the amount of R&D and scale required to be successful is massive. And so you end up with many single sources of failure within the industry, heavy levels of consolidation. And so obviously a lot of the CHIPS Act funding has gone towards the manufacturing itself, the Intel, Samsung, TSMCs of the world. As you think about the broader resiliency of the industry, you do have to look multiple levels deeper to include the equipment. Quartz would be an example of a subsystem. The materials that go into semiconductors, you'll see this level of concentration and risk at many places in the industry.
All right, Peter, we got to leave it there. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much.